Until pretty recent, America only thought of one type of family called the nuclear family, which depicts a married heterosexual couple and their young children all living together under one roof. This depiction was commonly known as the 1950s Leave It to Beaver model of the breadwinner homemaker suburban nuclear family. But even though this was the idea that was commonly thought of when one pictured the family, less than 60% of American children during the 1950s actually lived in breadwinner homemaker families. Many children lived in poverty, with the poverty rate being twice as high as it is today. Teen pregnancy rates were twice as high then, and alcoholism and violence in families were common. Today, more than 60% of married women with children under the age of 6 are now in the workforce. Now, the U.S. divorce rate has risen since the early 1900s. Best estimates say that 40 to 50% of all new marriages will one day end in divorce. Divorce increased during the 1960s and 70s, most likely because women were gaining economic independence, starting to work more outside the home. As more women started working, they could begin to afford to get divorced, not having to rely on their husband's earnings anymore. Another reason divorce rose in the 1960s was because divorces became easier to obtain. Divorce used to be frowned upon, but now it is considered a normal but unfortunate circumstance in life. Divorce affects all parts of the family and its dynamics. One interesting facet of divorce is how it affects the children of the family involved. I have asked to interview two participants, one whose family is together and another participant who comes from a family affected by divorce. So, when you think about marriage, would you want a marriage that's like your parents?
I think so. Since they're still together, I might want a little bit more affection in my marriage than what I at least see from my parents.
Would you say that your parents' relationship stayed stable once your mom stopped working?
I think so. I mean, she stopped working when I was born, so I can't compare it to anything, but they've been stable ever since I've been born, so.
So, even though you don't come from a broken home, do you still have apprehensions of marriage?
I do, because a lot of my friends' parents are divorced, and the media is all about people getting divorced, and so it makes me a little leery.
Do you wish to get married one day, though, despite knowing that 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce?
I do. One day.
Are most of your friends' parents divorced or still married?
It's probably half and half. I'd say several of my friends from home have divorced parents. And actually, yeah, several here too. I'd say half and half.
Do you think that coming from broken homes has influenced their lives and the way that they go about their romantic relationships?
I think so. I don't know if I'd say the divorce has an effect, but also like how involved, especially the dads are, like after the divorce, I feel like I can see has an effect on a lot of the dating choices that my friends make.
What do you think your household will look like in the future when you think about when you get married and have kids?
I'd hope to be married by the time I'm 30-ish, and then eventually have probably 2 children, maybe 3.
Do you think you'll continue working after you have kids?
I hope so.
Has your parents' marriage given you hope for your future, and has it shaped your future past relationships in any way?
I'd say that I don't know if it shaped relationships, but it definitely has given me like an example to follow and something that I strive for.
Thank you for interviewing with me.
You're welcome. How old were you when your parents were divorced?
I was in high school going into my junior year, so I was about 17 years old.
Did you see it coming?
Yes and no. I was like blindsided, but at the same time, like I could tell that the dynamics between my parents had changed when I had come back from my French exchange program the summer that it happened.
Was the divorce cordial? Has it caused a lot of anxiety for you or your siblings?
My parents were pretty good about maintaining like good ties with each other, and they didn't let their relationship like affect my relationship with them or my siblings' relationship. So I would say that it was pretty cordial.
Has your parents' divorce altered the way that you view marriage? How?
I would say a little bit. It's definitely made me a little more hesitant and think more about like what marriage really means, just because the divorce rate is so high and I've seen it in my household. But other than that, like, hasn't been like too altered of a perception.
Do you wish to get married one day despite knowing that 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce?
Yes. Even though I know the divorce rate is really high and I've like seen it firsthand, I still have like this hope that that there is someone out there for me and that we could like start a family together.
Are most of your friends' parents divorced or still married?
It's funny because since the divorce rate is so high, you would think that I would have more friends whose parents are divorced, but really most of my friends, their families are close-knit and together.
Which parent did you live with after the divorce? Do you have a relationship with both parents?
I lived with my mom afterwards. Since I was in high school, I only lived with her for a couple years before coming to college. But yeah, I still maintain good ties with both of my parents, and they're both pretty involved in my life.
Being the older of the two children, do you think it has affected you or your younger sibling more?
I think it probably affected me a little bit more just because my sister was so young when it happened that I don't think she fully understood or grasped the concept of divorce and like what it meant.
Would you say that you are more cautious about marriage and relationships than you would be if your parents had not gotten divorced?
Probably a little bit. I just know that relationships and marriages, just because you get married doesn't mean that it's going to last forever. So I would say that I'm more cautious when choosing someone to date.
Thank you.